Hi everyone, I'm Pauline Braun and I'll give a short presentation on marine noise pollution and the welfare of the Cuvier beaked whale. To begin with, we'll find out what noise pollution actually is and by what sources it is caused. I'll then explain how marine life is affected, and to illustrate this, I'll introduce one species that is very sensitive to noise pollution, the Cuvier beaked whale. I'll provide some information on the species in general and on current welfare threats it faces. We'll then take a closer look at the species subpopulation living in the Mediterranean Sea. After that, I'll inform you on possible mitigation measures against noise pollution, what has been done so far and what else could be done. I'll then provide a short summary and finally some ideas about what we can do to address the issue. So, what is noise pollution? Slobberkorn defines noise pollution as the elevation of natural ambient noise levels due to sound-generating human activities, which may have detrimental consequences for humans and animals alike. It is further described as one of the most hazardous forms of pollution, which is omnipresent within terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems. But are human activities the only source of noise in the oceans? Clearly not. In fact, many things contribute to the underwater soundscape. These are categorized into natural sources, such as the eruption of an underwater volcano, but also less dramatic natural phenomena, such as rain hitting the surface of the water. Biotic sources, meaning sounds produced by living organisms. Examples for biotic sounds are the singing of whales or the clicking sounds which dolphins produce to map their surroundings in a process called echolocation. And then there are anthropogenic sounds, meaning sounds produced by us humans. Only sounds of this last category are considered noise pollution. But how do we make so much noise in the oceans? What are the sources of acoustic pollution? One big producer of noise pollution is industrial activity, where heavy machinery is used to drill the ocean ground for oil, gas, and other resources. But also, construction of offshore wind parks elevates underwater sound levels tremendously. Other sources are commercial shipping for inter- and intra-continental trade, as well as blast fishing or dynamite fishing, where explosives are used to stun or kill schools of fish in order to facilitate the capturing process. Recreational boating, for example for touristic activities and ferry rides, also contributes to ocean noise. In all these sources of noise pollution, noise is actually not wanted per se, it's merely an unintentional byproduct. There are, however, two major sources of noise pollution where sound is intentionally produced. Seismic surveys and Navy sonar both use the physical properties of sound to gain information about something that is out of sight. In seismic surveying, air guns are used to create enormous blasts, sending sound waves towards the bottom of the ocean. The reflection of these sounds is then used to map the ground beneath, trying to find oil, gas, and other resources. The Navy commonly uses sonar of different frequencies to detect submarines. To get an idea about the underwater sound intensity, please take a look at this image provided by Sea Shepherd. It shows different sources of noise pollution, Navy sonar, seismic surveying, and a tanker, along with the corresponding range of decibels produced. As you can see, sonar source array and airgun array can reach sound volumes up to 250 decibels, and even a tanker produces more than 180 decibels. By the way, an airplane taking off reaches sound volumes of around 140 decibels. Just imagine the tremendous exposure to sonic waves that marine life experiences, especially when being exposed to several polluters at the same time. Also, it's not like marine life is sitting around quietly, waiting for some acoustic stimulation in their otherwise silent world. Quite the contrary. As we already know, marine animals are great sound producers themselves. For example, whales sing, dolphins click, fish croak, and shrimps snap. These biotic sounds can reach volumes up to 100 decibels, not enough to avoid being drowned out by a passing ship. This animation shows exactly this drowning out effect happening in the Boston Harbor. The small dots are whale sounds. The large dots are passing ships. This disruption of sound producing and communication between animals is not the only effect noise pollution has on marine life. Kung and colleagues have created a comprehensive overview of all known effects. We'll not look at this figure in detail. Instead, I would like to draw your attention to the different levels of effectiveness, namely behavior, physiology, and anatomy. Negative impairments on any of those three levels can cause short-term and long-term individual responses, but also eventually ecological effects. For example, noise pollution can drown out communication between a whale mother and her calf, possibly leading to the two being separated. This will, in many cases, result in the calf's death, which then contributes to the species' decline in population. It's very difficult to anticipate the effects of noise pollution as they vary greatly depending on sound level, duration, spectrum, temporal pattern, and, of course, distance from the source. Being close to a very loud sound can cause damage to the auditory system, to internal organs and blood vessels. Here, it's important to understand that sound underwater is not the same as sound in the air. Water is much denser than air and does not have the forgiving compressibility characteristics associated with air. So, when strong sound waves hit an organism underwater, the air pockets within the organism will distort first, up to a point where the organism cells cannot maintain their structural integrity and break down. Affected underwater animals are believed to enter a panicked state while trying to escape this terrible attack on their homeostasis. The consequences when being exposed to less extreme levels of sound are disorientation, disruption of communication, of foraging and nursing behavior, as well as chronic stress. These consequences might seem less dramatic, but they often affect a great number of individuals and species, thus possibly contributing significantly to ecological changes. So exactly how big is the problem we are facing? Scientists have already realized that noise pollution is one of the major human impacts on the marine environmental system and must be taken seriously. Also, threats involved are likely to increase as human activity on and in the oceans intensifies and the so-called acoustic climate change proceeds further. Moreover, noise pollution affects an immense variety of species, ranging from microscopic zooplankton to whales. We'll now get to know the Cuvier-beaked whale. The beaked whale family consists of 23 species, of which many are not yet well understood. The Cuvier-beaked whale can be described as a medium-sized whale of about 7 meters length and 3 tons weight, with an estimated life expectancy of 60 years. His habitat is marine oceanic or bathypelagic, meaning he dwells and forages in depths of 1,000 to 4,000 meters. In fact, the deepest dive recorded for this species is almost 3,000 meters, and the longest dive duration was 3 hours and 42 minutes. That's the longest dive ever recorded for any marine mammal. This is made possible by the Cuvier-beaked whale's enormous oxygen storage capacities, low metabolic rates, and high acid buffering capacity. Having an immensely wide distribution range, the Cuvier-beaked whale is considered the most cosmopolitan species among all beaked whales. He can be found in the Pacific, Atlantic, and Indian Ocean, as well as in the Mediterranean Sea. There is not sufficient data to be sure about the current global population, but it's estimated to be around 100,000 mature animals. The population trend is unknown, but the International Union for Conservation and Nature assigns the Cuvier-beaked whale to the category of least concern. Nevertheless, Cuvier-beaked whales face numerous welfare threats, for example as bycatch in fishing nets, through the ingestion of plastic debris and through water contamination. But, as scientists from the IUCN and Puritan colleagues have stated, the most serious concern for the Cuvier-beaked whale's welfare is noise pollution. Many scientists have described this species as being particularly sensitive to acoustic exposure, especially to mid-frequency active sonar. That's a kind of sonar often used in Navy exercises. In fact, the Cuvier-beaked whale is the species most often stranded in association with MFAS. But why is the Cuvier-beaked whale so vulnerable to MFAS? Being an offshore, deep-diving species, Cuvier-beaked whales are not accustomed to other forms of noise pollution, as they are probably little exposed to human activities that occur in coastal waters. Also, it's believed that once exposed to MFAS, they enter a panicked state and descend too quickly. This rapid decrease in surrounding pressure causes decompression sickness or the bends, resulting in terrible injuries. We'll now take a closer look at the subpopulation. That's around 5,000 to 7,000 whales living in the Mediterranean Sea. Here, the population trend is in fact decreasing, and the IUCN classifies this subpopulation as vulnerable. The Mediterranean subpopulation is of great interest to us, because the Cuvier-beaked whale is the only beaked whale species commonly found in these waters. This eliminates the risk of confusing different beaked whale species, which apparently is a common mistake. Also, the Mediterranean Sea is an elongated, semi-enclosed deep basin that is virtually landlocked. This makes it difficult for the species to change habitat if threatened. This bar chart by Podesta et al. Shows Cuvier speed whale strandings in the Mediterranean Sea from 1803, when Georges Cuvier first discovered a whale's skull at the French coast and later described it, giving the species its name, all the way up to 2003. Two winter whales immediately catch the eye. Between 1961 and 1965, 56 whales stranded, and between 1996 and 2000, the incredible number of 84 whales stranded. Here it's important to note that it is assumed that for every whale stranded on the shore, there are many more that die and remain at sea. But what could have caused the death of so many whales? Although establishing a direct cause and effect relationship is of course difficult, scientists were able to convincingly link mass strandings occurring in 1996 to sonar exercises conducted by NATO naval forces. Although not as well documented and researched, mass strandings occurring in the early 60s are most likely also connected to sonar use. Around that time, MFAS was introduced and used for the first time in the Mediterranean Sea. These mass strandings clearly demonstrate the Cuvier speed whale's vulnerability to anthropogenic noise, especially to MFAS. Also, the strandings in the Mediterranean Sea are by far not the only strandings that occurred with direct connection to MFAS. Cuvier speed whale strandings in the Mariana Archipelago, as well as in the Canary Islands, are well documented. However, in 2004, the Spanish government introduced a ban on naval exercises using sonar on the Canary Islands, and there have been no mass strandings ever since. Banning sonar use is one example for possible mitigation measures. But what else has been done so far? Less noisy ship propellers have been developed, but they are not as widespread as one would hope. Let's look at some institutions and how they address the issue of noise pollution. For example, the EU's Marine Strategy Framework Directive recognizes marine noise pollution as a serious problem and urges member states to monitor and reduce anthropogenic noise. Also, the Global Ocean Observing System already uses noise as one of their essential variables for monitoring ocean health. The International Ocean Noise Coalition was created as a global approach to combating the global issue of noise pollution. The IONC is a partnership of over 150 non-governmental organizations from around the world. Hopefully, these and other international frameworks will be able to introduce and spread further mitigation measures and somehow keep the threats of marine noise pollution at bay. All right, but what else could and should be done? The ban of sonar use should be extended to other areas where mass strandings occur. This could of course simply relocate the problem, so ideally use of sonar should be limited as much as possible. Less noisy methods for gas and oil production should be developed. Maybe there could be a way to somehow shield the surrounding aquatic ecosystem from the sound, or at least weaken the sound's intensity before it is released into the ocean. All major producers of marine noise pollution should be obligated to make information on their activities publicly accessible. This would make it easier for scientists to conduct further research in order to improve our understanding of the connection between noise pollution and marine life welfare. Because noise pollution is a global problem, international coordination and cooperation should be improved. The existing International Convention for the Prevention of Pollution from Ships, MARPOL, could be extended to include a noise pollution annex. This approach is attractive as it would leverage an existing and effective framework. Slower ships are quieter ships. Therefore, ships should be obligated to reduce speed when passing over known feeding grounds of marine animals. Also, discounts in harbor docking fees could be allowed for ships designed to be less noisy. The good thing about these mitigation measures is that whatever is done to reduce noise pollution has an immediate effect. When the source is stopped, noise does not linger on, contaminating the environment. Theoretically, we could solve the issue of marine noise pollution within days. Now, to summarize, marine noise pollution is caused by human activities, such as commercial shipping, seismic surveys, drilling for oil and gas, naval sonar exercises, and recreational boating. Noise pollution negatively affects the welfare of many underwater species. It can cause disruption of important behaviors, such as foraging or nursing behavior. Also, physical damage and even death are results of noise pollution, as has been documented in many cases of whale strandings, for example, for the Cuvier-beaked whale. Some international organizations have indeed recognized the threat noise pollution poses to marine life, but further research, more international coordination and cooperation, and a legal framework monitoring and regulating the activity of major noise producers is needed. And what can we do to help? Let's think carefully before participating in ocean tourist activities. Maybe trying to spot a whale from the shore using binoculars could be a good alternative for traditional whale watching cruises. You can also donate money to organizations that go up against marine noise pollution and other threats for ocean life. And last but not least, you can raise awareness for this important issue and try to convince other people to strive and fight for oceans that resonate with the singing of whales and not with human-produced lethal sounds. Thank you very much for listening.